privilege this morning to welcome our guests, our veterans. We are honored and privileged to have you here in our building today. The family members that you have that are a part of our family here at school are very proud of you, as we are, for all the service that you've done for our country. We also are very happy to have Mary Hammond here today to share with us a story, a special reading that she does. It's kind of tradition here at Norris Elementary, and we're so happy that she's here to share that with us. So I'm going to hand it back over to Ms. Newton.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the singing of the national anthem. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This morning we are joined together and recognize a Veterans Day. A veteran is a person who has helped protect our country by serving the United States military. The branches of the military are the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard.
Veterans Day is recognized on November 11th. That date was chosen for Veterans Day in honor of the ending of World War I. On November 11, 1918, the day was originally called Armistice Day, but was later changed to Veterans Day. On this day, we honor the men and women who have sacrificed to protect our country and the freedoms we enjoy. Make sure to say thank you to a veteran every time you have a chance.
We are excited to have our veterans back in the audience today. We are going to read all the names of students submitted to recognize their veterans. If you are in the audience, please stand to be recognized. Please hold your applause to the end. Steve Alstead. Mr. Alstead served 4 years in the United States Air Force from 1965 to 1969 and served in Vietnam. He is Natalie Alstead's grandfather. Chief Warrant Officer 4, Heath Barrett. Chief Barrett served 16 years in the United States Army and served in the global war on terror. He is recognized by his sons Jackson and Colton Barrett. Gary Bodenstein, aviation electrician's mate, 2nd class. Bodenstein served 6 years in the United States Navy from 1970 to 1976 and served in Vietnam. Bodenstein saved 23 people from a sinking ship and completed numerous tasks during his career. He is recognized by his grandson, Galen Gossett. Sergeant Kyle Bolton Sergeant Bolton served 6 years in the United States Marine Corps. He has served in enduring freedom in Afghanistan. He is recognized by his son, Jaden Bolton. Lieutenant Colonel Jordan Bounds. Lieutenant Colonel Bounds served 20 years in the United States Air Force from 2001 to 2021 and served in Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation New Dawn. He was a mobility pilot in the United States Air Force. He completed pilot training, parachute training, and survival training. He was an aircraft commander for both the KC-135 Stratotanker and the C-17 Globemaster. He flew combat missions in both aircraft. His overseas postings include England and Australia. He is the uncle of Evelyn and Emmeline Unthank. Paul Vancey Brinley Sr. Brinley served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps. He was a structural mechanic and was stationed in Japan for 13 months. He is Isaiah and Latham Sharp's grandpa. Dylan Burkhalter. Burkhalter is currently serving in the United States Air Force. He is Lakin and Isaiah Sharp's cousin. Sergeant Gerald Carden. Sergeant Carden served 3 years in the United States Army from 1949 to 1951 and served in the Korean War. He is Josiah Wilson's great-grandfather. Terry Kaywood, First Class Petty Officer. First Class Petty Officer Kaywood served 6 years in the United States Navy. He is the father of Travis Kaywood. Lieutenant Commander Dr. John Chambers. Lieutenant Commander Chambers served as a doctor in the United States Navy from 1969 to 1976 and served in the Vietnam War in the Philadelphia Naval Hospital. He is recognized by his granddaughter Addie Blevins and SRO Corey Blevins. Master Sergeant Spencer Chambers. Master Sergeant Chambers served 11 years in the United States Air Force. He is Jason Haven Cotton's uncle. Private Earl Clark. Private Clark served 3 years in the United States Army in Vietnam. During his service, he received the Purple Heart. He is recognized by his grandson, Fisher Clark. Specialist William Cornett, E4. Specialist Cornett served in the Army National Guard for 6 years. He was a cavalry scout. He is Kane Gardner's brother. Bruce Norrin Coral. Mr. Coral served 4 years in the United States Marines and served in Vietnam. He is Elena Disney's great-grandfather. Sergeant First Class Herb Cross. Sergeant First Class Cross served 27 years in the United States Marines in the National Guard. He is Haven and Jace Cotton's papa. Specialist Chad Crawley. Specialist Crawley served 3 years in the United States Army from 2007 to 2011. He is Carly McVeigh's uncle. Sip Dancy. Dancy served 3 years in the United States Army, 82nd Airborne Division. He is recognized by his daughter, Mae Dancy. Corporal Logan Douglas. Corporal Douglas served 8 years in the United States Army from 2007 to 2011. He served in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. He is Mason and Ella Douglas's father. Sergeant Ben Earl. Sergeant Earl served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps and served in Operation Iraqi Freedom 1 and 2. He is the uncle to Aria Wallace. Captain Joseph Fink. Captain Fink served 25 years in the United States Army and served in the Vietnam War. He is Patrick DeGuercy's grandfather. Jacob Floyd E. Floyd served 4 years in the United States Navy. He is Presley Floyd's dad. Sergeant Kimberly Fulton. Sergeant Fulton served 23 years in the National Guard and served in Iraq, Kuwait, Africa, and Poland. She is Blaze and Dale Wallace's aunt. Bill Hicks E5. Hicks served 4 years in the United States Navy from 1968 to 1972 and served in Vietnam. He is the granddaughter of Meadow LaRue. Corporal Ron Humble. Corporal Humble served 6 years in the United States Marine Corps and served in Desert Storm. He is Lucia Humble's father. Tim Jennings. Mr. Jennings served 10 years in the United States Air Force. He is Reed and Benson McGowan's grandfather. Master Sergeant Gary Johnson. Master Sergeant Johnson served 20 years in the Air National Guard and served in Operation Iraqi Freedom and on Operation Enduring Freedom. He is Nathan Johnson's dad. Michael Johnson. Johnson served 3 years in the United States Army. He is father of Kendrick Johnson. Sergeant David Jones. Sergeant Jones served 4 years in the United States Air Force and served during the Vietnam War. He He worked with the Office of Special Investigations. He is Henley Jones' father. Robert Keltner. Mr. Keltner served in the United States military and is Emerson and Charleston Irwin's great-grandfather. Michael Kohler, E5. Kohler served 3 years in the United States Navy and a year and a half in the National Guard. He served in the Persian Gulf. He is recognized by his daughters Marlene and Michelle Kohler. Sergeant Michael Kewins. Sergeant Kewins served 5 years in the United States Marine Corps. And he is the father of Jude Kewins. Daniel McBee, Second Class Petty Officer. Second Class Petty Officer McBee serves 2 years in the United States Navy from 1965 to 1967. He is Carly McBee's grandfather. Thomas McNeely, E4. McNeely served 5 years in the United States Marine Corps from 2003 to 2007. He served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. He is Aiden and Alex McNeely's awesome uncle. Sean McGowan. Mr. McGowan served 4 years in the United States Army. He is Reed and Benson's father. Willard Melton. Mr. Melton served in the United States Army in World War II. He is recognized by Daisy and Maggie Dyer. Ed Meyer. Meyer served 8 years in the United States Air Force and served in Vietnam. He is grandfather to Reese, Avery, and Landry Meyer. George Maselli. Mr. Maselli served in the United States Air Force from 1971 to 1973 during the Vietnam War. He is Dominic Maselli's grandfather. William C. Mitchell. Mitchell served 4 years in the United States Army and served in World War II. He is recognized by his great-granddaughter, Tara Nicholas. John Antinker. Antinker served 4 years in the United States Air Force from 1974 to 1977. He is Emerson White's grandfather and Mr. White's dad. Mrs. White's dad. Staff Sergeant Nicholas Petty. Staff Sergeant Petty served 7 years in the United States Army and National Guard. He served in Iraq and is the father to Graylin Roy. Specialist Kyle Price. Specialist Price served 3.5 years in the United States Army. He is recognized by Emerson and Carter Price. Frank Rossi, Sr. Mr. Rossi served in the United States Army in 1945 and served in World War II. He is great-grandfather of Dominic Maselli. Rufus Sieber. Mr. Sieber served in the United States Army in World War II. He is recognized by Daisy and Maggie Dyer. John Siegenthaler. Mr. Siegenthaler served 7 years in the United States Army from 2002 to 2009 and served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. He is Tinley and Jack Siegenthaler's dad. Edgar Smith. Smith served in the United States military and is grandfather to Lucas Thomas. Walter Spector. Mr. Spector served in 3 years in the United States Army. He is Alexis and Caitlin Beats' great-great-uncle. Tech Sergeant Horace Taylor. Tech Sergeant Taylor served 11 years in the United States Air Force and served in Afghanistan. He is Lily Beats' uncle. Sergeant Nathan Thomas. Sergeant Thomas served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps and served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. He is father of Lucas Thomas. Paul Vandegrift. Vandegrift served 4 years in the United States Air Force and served in Vietnam. He is Tucker Wilson's grandfather. Sergeant Ron Weaver. Sergeant Weaver served 4 years in the United States Army's 2nd Infantry Division. He has served 4 years in Korea during the Vietnam era. He is Ike North's grandfather.
We are honored to have an extra special member of our school family with us this morning. Miss Mary Hammond is joining us to share a story about a special group of our veterans.
What a wonderful morning it is. It's so great to be back home. I miss all of you and I love all of you. And it's so nice to have the veterans with us here today. Last year they couldn't come, so it's so wonderful to have you here this morning. And I'm very grateful. Thank you for your service, for helping us keep our freedom, our liberties. We love you and appreciate you, and may God bless you always. It was just a little white table, but it brought tears of pride to my Uncle John's eyes. The Veterans Day he came for dinner, and he stood by it. It was set for just one person, even though nobody would be eating at it. It was just a little white table. But earlier that day, Mama had told Gretchen, Samantha, and me the little table we were setting for Veterans Day was just like the ones that have stood across America in the dining halls of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force since the Vietnam War ended. The tables honor the men and women who serve in America's armed forces, especially those missing in action, our MIAs, and those held prisoner of war, our POWs. It was just a little white table, but it felt as big as America when we helped Mama put each item on it. And she told us why it was so important. We use a small table, girls, she explained first, to show one soldier's lonely battle against so very many. We cover it with a white cloth to honor a soldier's pure heart when he answers his or her call to duty. We place a lemon slice and grains of salt on a plate to show a captive soldier's bitter fate and the tears of families waiting for loved ones to return, she continued. We push an empty chair to the table for the missing soldiers who are not here. We lay a black napkin for the sorrow of captivity and turn over a glass for the meal that won't be eaten, she said. We place a white candle for peace and finally a red rose in a vase tied with a red ribbon for the hope that all our missing soldiers will return someday. Mama finished speaking just as sunlight spilled on the table and filled the overturned glass. It was just a little white table, but it suddenly made me want to burst with a feeling I could not explain when Mama told us how much our setting the white table would mean to Uncle John that night. Then she told us something that we didn't know. Our Uncle John, who gave us big bear hugs and spun us with airplane twirls and called me his Katie girl. Our very own Uncle John was a POW in Vietnam before we were even born. It was just a little white table. But it gave us the courage to ask Mama, what happened to Uncle John in Vietnam? She quietly told us his story. When Uncle John served in Vietnam, he was sent on a rescue mission, and his helicopter was shot down behind enemy lines, she began. And he and his 3 crew members were taken prisoner. One crew member named Mike had serious wounds from the crash, but Uncle John and the other men tried to help Mike get better and persuaded a guard to bring Mike medicine. Then one day, when a guard looked away, Uncle John and the others had a chance to escape, but Mike was still too sick to go. So Uncle John stayed behind because he would not leave a fellow soldier alone so far from home. But how did Uncle John get free? We asked Mama. Sometime later, Uncle John had a chance to escape again, and somehow he was able to take Mike with him, carrying him on his back and collecting just enough water and big leaves to keep them alive until our Uncle John found an American infantry unit to help them. But even though Uncle John did everything he could to bring Mike home alive, Mike's wounds were just too serious, and he died before the rescue helicopter landed. Oh, I know that Mike was only 20 years old, and I know he dreamed of playing football, but he loved America enough to give his life for his country when duty called. And I know too how much Uncle John loves America. But he learned when helping Mike that a soldier risks his life for a fellow soldier because the very best of your country lives in every man and woman who would lay down their life for you too. It was just a little white table, but it needed words of gratitude like Mama's Thanksgiving meal. So before Uncle John arrived for dinner, Gretchen and Samantha and I decided to put 3 gifts of our very own on the table to honor our veterans. Gretchen colored pictures of all the objects on the table, and Samantha wrote out the words, "Of my country, 'tis of thee." But I didn't know what I, a 10-year-old girl, could ever put on that table that was as important as each veteran's gift of freedom to me. It was just a little white table. But I looked at it all dinner long, and in the quiet inside me, I could almost hear those silent soldiers of the empty chair saying, "Remember us, please. We are real people, like your Uncle John and Mike, who left families and friends, homes and dreams of our own, to protect your birthright of liberty from disappearing as easily as sunlight from a glass." It was just a little white table. But it took my words away when I hugged Uncle John goodnight, and I wanted to thank him for serving our country so bravely. So I just hugged him even harder and told him, I love you. Uncle John hugged me back even harder than I had hugged him. And that's when I knew what I could put on the table. My promise to put the words from my heart into a little book about America's white table. And in the book, I've used Gretchen's pictures and Samantha's song and Mama's story about Uncle John and his friend Mike. Because I hoped that everyone who hears or reads the little book will set a white table on Veterans Day too. So the brave Americans, the little table honors, won't ever feel forgotten by the country they loved so much. Then in the salt on the little white table, I traced in the grains of their families' tears what each man and woman who serves America is to me, a great hero. And that's when I saw the tears of pride fill my Uncle John's eyes. I want to give a personal thanks to each one of the veterans that are here tonight. May God bless you all. Thank you for your service. When you see a veteran, give him a hug. Say thank you to him. Our liberty means so much, more than ever before. So thank you very kindly.
want to say thank you to all of our veterans that came and joined us this morning, but that does conclude our Veterans Day program. Give our veterans one more round of applause, please. Thank you again for joining us this morning.